Oh, am I on? I think I'm on. You guys are looking at my stuff I'm making. Okay. Sorry. I was just about to make my lunch. Peace to the east, the west, the north, and the south. Welcome. I know it looks so good. You want to see again? Yeah. This is my subterranean reptilian meal right here. Yeah. So I'm just gonna. It's not cooking. It's all raw. So you guys can watch me. You want to see me? Yeah. I'm about to dice it up. You catch me off guard. Peace to the east, the west, the north, and the south. This is Fleur Boone coming to you today with a new topic of discussion. So I figured I'd do this while I talk up. Big up to the east, the west, the north, and the south. Yeah, it's raw. It's all raw. So I told you I had a problem eating for a while after my fast, but you know I'm really taking claim to my reptilian state of being. So because of that, and you know I don't use anything but glass and bamboo. So you know that I'm using only natural things that rather than metals. So I wanted to get in this conversation about, isn't it huge? Like this is a big platanos. Anyone know platanos? Platanos, yeah, but I eat platanos raw. Big up to all my Caribbean or Southerners who grow plantains in their backyards, right? This is so good, but I'm gonna make it raw. I know this looks really perverted. So I'm gonna do this while I'm having the video. So I wanted to talk about, you know, very platanos, like platanos, yeah. So I wanted to talk about reptilian status and really taking ownership, you know, repping the reptilians, and why for a long time that was probably the most unpopular thing, probably quite a few years ago, and just basically really taking ownership of who and what you are. And I wanted to have this conversation because I think a lot of times, you know, there's such a misrepresentation as if all reptiles are the same. And just like there aren't people that are the same, there are, I know you guys want to see me, you want to see me make it while I talk? Why don't I show it to you while I talk, okay? So this will give you something to look at rather than me, okay? Do you want to see what I'm making while I'm talking to you? Okay, so let me do this let me change the view of the camera, okay? Oh, here we go. There we go. So, so we can do this while I'm talking, okay? So, yeah. So this way you guys kind of have a view. All right, so, I'll do it this way. It's easier for me to cut this way. So, you know, I think for a long time there was this misconception due to people like David Icke, Corey Good, David Wilcock. A lot of these, I personally think, these agent provocateurs who actually are working for government. This is my opinion, working for the government, right? And are hold on. So, sorry, family. I want to make it as neat as possible. Who are working for the government, who have made this dialogue, the narrative of reptilians, so negative that a lot of times we've become so sensitive or actually hostile towards the concept of reptilians. And over the years, as I've come into ownership of who and what I am, and speaking to many of you who are coming into the awareness of who and what you are, I've started to lay claim to who I am and our lineage. And no longer do we have to hide in the shadows of everyone else's concept or false concept of what a reptilian is. Like I said, there are many different forms of reptilians, and just like there are many different people, you would not say that if you come on this planet Earth that there would be one type of person, right? You would say there were different types of people. There would be different types of entities. Even if there's species of dogs or cats, you know, we have domesticated cats that are a lot different, and even they come in different types of visual, you know, looks. You know, you can have a cat that has one eye that's green, one blue. You have a cat that's black, it's smaller. You have miniature cats. You have cats that have no hair on them. You have a multitude of different types of species of everything on this planet. And the assumption is that there would only be one type of reptile. And we understand now that there are many different species of reptiles, and there were reptilians coexisting on this planet previous to many of the inception or the commingling or the actual colonization that came afterwards from more hostile reptiles. You know, the draconians are much more of a hostile breed. They're more, I call them crocodilians. The crocodilians are a much more hostile breed, and they're not necessarily here for the cohesive engagement with human beings or, you know, mankind. They're very aggressive. They tend to be, you know, hostile in most scenarios. They're what you would consider to be basically a sociopathic class of reptilians. But then you have the subterranean reptilians. See that? It's beautiful, right? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. It's beautiful. You have subterranean reptilians. Look, I'm going to squeeze that on. Who are a very beautiful, more pacifist, more egalitarian type of reptile that's coexisted here on the inner earth planes. So we have interterrestrials that are inner earth reptilians that are actually quite, I wouldn't say passive, but they're not as aggressive, and they've dealt well with humanity. And at one point, they coexisted on the surface of the planet, right? So look at that, okay? So hold on, family. So let me just, you know. This is my lunch for anyone who's, you know, I have diced scallions, and this is a very nice, see that, very nice mixture there, okay? So when we come into talking about reptilians, and this is, you know, these are bond peppers. Anyone know these are bond peppers from my garden? These are really good. They're hot and spicy, so, you know, I won't do too much. And what I tend to do with the bond peppers, you just, you know, I know I'm cooking at the same time that you're watching me, right? So with the subterranean reptilians, they tend to be very passive. And when these other more aggressive reptilians came to this planet and wanted to dominate, what they did is they not only homogenized humanity by creating a mixing their DNA with some animalistic beings that actually coexisted on the surface of the planet. They actually lived here. They weren't necessarily what I consider to be very, they were just more, you know, more, what do you call it? I don't want to say savage, but they were obviously more primitive, right? This is, you know, so you see this? This is, as you know, this is thyme, fresh thyme. So I got this from the garden. So you see that. I'm going to mix it together. Fresh thyme, okay? They were much more of a basic primitive type of animalistic type of being that coexisted on the planet, kind of like Cro-Magnon, right? And because of that, sorry, this is fresh allspice. So, you know, do allspice. Sorry, allspice. I know I'm double dipping today, family, because I wanted to have lunch and I wanted to make the video and you kind of wanted to see it. So I'm just doing it for you to make it really look very nice and, you know, mix it together. Yeah, most of these things are from the garden. These are from all outdoors, fresh from outside. So these are things that are freshly from the trees outside. You see that? Okay. So of course you had the crocodilians that came here, more hostile, and a host of other types of reptiles that came here and coexisting here with another group of ETs as well. We get into those concepts, but what I wanted to discuss is why do we always take this stance that all reptilians are the same or they're all negative? And I want you to start to look back at those who you have literally been listening to over the years regarding the reptilians and who has pretty much been the main narrative, the ones who've had the main narrative on the disposition of reptiles. So this is it, family. This is lunch. Doesn't that look good? Yummy, yummy, yummy. So that's lunch, okay? Donald Marshall actually talked about them as well. Okay, so, okay, sorry about that. That's lunch. I know it's a little messy. Hopefully that was okay. I figured I'd do it while you wanted to see what I was doing. I'm pretty transparent, right? So we have these, the narrative coming from specific people, specific individuals that I personally think are governmentally placed there to give you a specific narrative of what reptilians are, okay? So at the end of the day, we have to be careful because we understand and understand that if a specific narrative has been the consistent consensus over what it's been over 20 years of people, especially like David Icke talking about the reptilians or these blood sucking. He's talking about reptilians, but this is why I say he gives you some truth, but he's lumping everything together. And I wouldn't say like a person from Italy who's from the south part of Italy, who's maybe more challenged financially, would be the same as an Italian who's living in New York 2 or 3 generations, who's mixed with the populace. I wouldn't lump those two together, even though they may have a general, maybe a common ancestor. I wouldn't necessarily say the Italians in Sicily or in the north part of Italy would be likened to those who are living in New York City several generations and then mixed with the populace there. I wouldn't do that. That's what David Icke does when he always says reptilians. He's giving you a general consensus of one type of reptile, which we know by the sociopathic behavior of it, would generally be denoted as most likely the crocodilians. This is so good. And because of that, we have to be careful taking all that information that he's giving us, giving you one blanket to cover a multitude of species that can't possibly be all the same. We do know that the draconian system does have several different types of reptiles. We also know that there are other beings here. Oh, thank you, Tasha. Yes, I would love if you put a like on here. Yeah, because there's a lot of people in here. You guys forget. I forget all the time to put likes. If you put a like, I'd really appreciate it. So I keep doing the content. But a lot of times, you have a general consensus of reptilians, blanking them out under one umbrella, and you're always thinking, oh, reptilians are hostile or they're negative. Yes, now, I will say, the fact that a lot of reptilians are cloaking themselves, that is disconcerting. And to be honest, if you look at the Sumerian tablets, some of the archived Sumerian tablets that sometimes you have access to online, also, if you look at some of the, if you go to Chichen Itza or some of the other Mayan temples that have some of the reptiles, especially snakes, the Nega representative, if you look at a lot of the engraved hieroglyphs that are on a lot of the different burial sites or sites where we have a lot of the renowned temples or what do you call it? The pyramids, you will see images of reptiles of all different types. Sometimes you will see lizard beings, right? So they look more, more like iguanas, like iguanodons, right? So they look like iguanas, almost like very lizard-like. They look more like the typical lizard, which we've had accounts of people who have been in Mississippi and have also, hey, Serenity, we've actually seen beings in Mississippi and also parts of the South where they've actually come in account. New Orleans, we've had some gun-toting mamas who've had accounts with some of these iguanodon-looking reptilians, very lizard-like looking reptilians. Then we have those reptiles that look almost like cat-like beings or birds. Remember, birds and cats have very similar eyes, right? So if you look at a cat has the same eyes, the very slit eyes, just like a snake, just like that of a bird. Okay, that's reptilian DNA. And if you listen to your mighty president at one point on The View, which I thought, I made sure I taped this. If you look at your I'm sorry. For those who are walking in, I just made a yummy lunch. I'm just dropping it around. A raw dish that I make. This is my classic raw dish that I make. A lot of my partners, my mate, Kirk, love this. This is like his favorite dish that I make. So, a lot of the different cats and birds have a very similar look as far as the eye shape, okay? So when you're talking about reptilians and you're lumping a whole species, when you have a multitude of different galaxies and star systems, which happen to have this as a common DNA, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Why? Is because we have these agent type of beings who sit here and actually talk about reptilians in the most disenfranchising, most disheartening way. Meanwhile, they're not giving you a multitude of different types of reptilians, or different, breaking them apart into different individuals, different types of groups of sects of reptilians. Okay, just like we have people. You have brown people that look like me that are from Yemen or East Africa. And then you have Africans on the other side that are from more West Africa, who have deeper Nubian skin, maybe more coily hair, but you would all say those are African, right? But if we lump them all together, generally they would have totally different types of dispositions, right? So yes, I could go in here. We have the Draco. We have the Draco, which is considered, I call them the Dracos I like to liken to the crocodilians. I just made that turn up. Crocodilians, right? Then we have the Brill. Brill is more of like a small little worm-like parasite that usually crawls into the eyes, goes behind the part of your eye, and then connects to your nervous system, and then ends up running your avatar via you're going behind your eye. That's the Brill. Many of you don't even talk about the Vril, and he doesn't. I think David, like, who's mentioned that? You have some of the other groups of agent provocateurs that talk about the Vril. The Vril is probably the one that's most diabolical, that nobody even talks about. So you have the Vril that goes behind the eyes, uses the eyes as a way of incepting. You'll see the Pope sometimes with a black eye. Is usually, they'll say that they've been incepted. If you ever watch Stargate, which is a movie, kind of talks about that a little bit, but they enter through the solar plexus, right? They attach through there. Okay, so we have that. Then we have the Nega. The Nega, which Fleur is very in sync with. The Nega serpent, which is connected to a group of ETs that came here, and one side of the ET group had actually a connection to Sirius, where there were snake-like, serpent-like beings that came here and actually have been mixing and breeding with a group of mostly Central Americans, South Americans, some in the Caribbean, some in the South, okay? Which you'll see the Nega representative of the Andromedan, who I represent, who's kin to the actual Nega representatives in African diaspora in Eastern Africa, which are connected to those from ancient Kemet, because the Yemenians, the Somalians, and the ancient Ethiopians are all kin to the actual beings that coexisted there in ancient Kemet, which many of you call modern day Egypt, okay? Those are the actual genetic types, phenotypes that actually coexisted there at the time where there were gods living amongst the people, okay? Ancient, where you saw the people's phenotype. That's why, it's very interesting that people say, oh, well, the ancient Egyptians were wearing wigs. They weren't wearing wigs, family. They would wear headpieces, right? They would wear headpieces, but they weren't wearing wigs because their hair texture was a little different. That's why it's very interesting. Be careful of who you're getting the directives from. Be careful of those who have subliminal prejudices or agendas based on how they disperse of their intel. Okay, because all of the Yemenians and people from Sudan and Ethiopia have straighter hair, somewhat like mine, maybe straighter, but they have very deep brown skin, sometimes have very straight features, rounder lips, but that's all of the kin from ancient Egypt. And even if you studied, like some of I did, I used to hang out with my geology friends because I was in research, and if any of you know, back in the days, I was actually doing the research not too long ago, but I did research previously in my beginning of my college years. If any of you didn't know, that when they came to Egypt, after it had already been abandoned, because remember, ancient Egypt wasn't abandoned, it changed frequency when we did the last pole shift. So certain civilizations dissipate, go into another frequency, so you think they're not there. They haven't abandoned it. They switch frequencies, just like the Mayan civilization. They want an inner earth, but they change frequencies, okay? So be careful when you say that a place has been, because those people in Egypt now are not the ancient Egyptians. They were not the people who built the pyramids. They took over a place that was already emptied out, took on the disposition, or it took on the basic culture, took it on, kind of placated themselves as those beings. They weren't that. They were the ancient Sudanese, Ethiopians. Those are more of those people. And if you don't know, because we were talking about cocaine, and I'm going to give you a little lesson here for those who are not into geology, because a lot of the lies, it's the same reason why they cut off the Sphinx's nose the Sphinx's nose in Egypt was cut off so people wouldn't know that it was a Negroid nose, right? It was done by colonists who came here who did not want people to know that the people who built those pyramids had wide noses, and they were Negroid, Africano, brown people, Nubians, Moorish looking people. Okay, so what they did is they cut off the nose. And what most people don't know, though, if you study geology, and most of you who've actually done really good research, which I love that I kick it with people like that, is most of the mummies, and this is going to get really disgusting, and this is why I say we got to be careful of who's giving this information out, because you have to know their motivation. Most of the mummies that were taken from ancient Egypt, when tombs were defiled, they were defiled. You're not supposed to dig up burial grounds. We don't do them here in the indigenous realm. Colonists were going and digging up old burial grounds, which was sacrilegious, which was defiling, and taking and opening the tombs of mummified beings that coexisted there, that were purposefully meant to be kept like that, so that when they came back in their DNA, when their brethren came back, they could do the geoengineering and microcloning needed to bring these beings back into life. When they did it, they took the bodies and they decided to eat the contents. Listen to me, family. I wouldn't lie to you. You can do your research. They decided, many of the colonists that came from Western Europe decided that because these beings were considered gods, they would consume, you can look it up, it's called mumia, it's black powder of the mummies. So they would take them and ship them to Europe and consume the black powder of the mummies. But before they would bring them over to Europe, you know what they would do in these tombs? They would decapitate the heads off so people wouldn't know the racial disposition of the mummies. So they would change the heads so that the heads look like other types of complexion people, different types of lineage. So they would cut the heads of the mummies so that when they were shipped over abroad, they would look more like the Europeans as opposed to the Africanos that these beings came from. That's a fact. You can look that up. And they were consuming, because it was considered the black, tarish looking black powder, actually was something most Europeans were consuming. They sold it. You can look that up. I actually have a picture of it. I'll probably maybe change the picture for you. And they were consuming the black powder thinking it was going to heal their ailments. Though at the same time, that same diaspora of colonizers demonized African people, called them savages for being, for consuming their dead loved ones, calling them cannibals for doing so. But then in the same breath, they were consuming strangers' decomposed bodies. Do you see what I'm saying? So be careful. I give you a little history lesson. Listen, this is the one thing you'll learn about Flerburn. I'm quite knowledgeable. I've studied a lot, and I know a lot of people from all over the world. I'm sorry. You found it, Sid? Yeah. You can always verify what I say. See, this is a wonderful thing. You'd be like, oh, it's called Mamiya. People be like, oh, Flerburn is crazy. She's talking about reptilians. She's saying things. But then when they start to vet things out, they were like, oh my gosh, she isn't that cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She actually does her research. She doesn't just lie around and eat fruit and vegetables all day, talking about madness. She actually vets things out. So I want to say this all to say that be careful of the people and those who are giving you a certain narrative of people, because every group of people has their own type of general disposition. And if we're a little more cognitive and a little more intellectually healthy, we can understand that doesn't just go along with just people or humans. It can go in the genres of different animals, different reptilians, different Arcturians, different Zeta Reticulans. There's a host of different things. So I want to go back to the main consensus. Why would you think that all reptilians are negative? If I told you that Flurburn is accepted, that I too have reptilian DNA, just like many of you do, if not 99% of you, except for those that are clones, and even with clones, you have a certain amount of degrees. Thank you, Sydney. If you knew that, why would you think, because some of you are very positive, but if you knew that you had a good quantified amount of reptilian, why are you negative? Why would you think that? Because you know why you would think it? Because it's been one narrative that's been perpetuated online. And it's been purposefully put out there by certain types of people who have an agenda, who have an incentive for telling you what they are. And I wanted to make this video to not justify the heinous behavior of some reptilians, but to give you a broader perspective that yes, there are those heinous crocodilians or very hostile reptilians or overlays of reptilians that have lost their zest of life, and they're basically influencing humanity as a way to feed off of the energy negatively. Yes, there are those, but if we talk about the ones that are more egalitarian or more the ones that are actually working in cohesion of humanity, or those that don't really interact with us that much, but they are part of the collective. The inner, like I said, the inner terrestrials, the inner, sorry, I'm trying to eat lunch before I have to go. I'm going to show you something too. The inner Earth reptilians are actually really, really sweet and kind. They're actually not very aggressive. Now, the Nega serpent is another lineage that I personally have in my DNA, and I accept it. And the fact of the matter is, the Nega serpent is the one why you hear in the Bible, or you hear a lot of Christians or even religious sects tend to demonize the snake, the serpent. You know why? Because they're mixed with the wonderful Andromeda sea stars and also the Nega sisters that come from the diaspora of Ra, or considered to be what we consider to be the sisterhood that coexists in East Africa now, which comes from the collective of, many of you know I talk about her very often, Sheba's bloodline. Sheba the Third, Empress Sheba the Third, is actually living. She was actually hidden in Trinidad. She was kept as a noble, as a regular person, hidden amongst the people until it was time for her to take over her reign. Now, if you think, oh, Flurburn, you've gone too far, there's no such thing as royal brown people, because they don't exist. Well, family, I challenge you to go and research Empress Sheba the Third, who is an active empress right now, who speaks to all of the princes, and all of the royal families give her utmost respect. She is welcomed in every royal family, including in the West. So if you think that that doesn't exist, because they don't want to tell you, she is connected to the snake bloodline, the Nega serpent bloodline, which are cousins and kin to the Andromedans, who I am personally seeded from. Now, I always give you these wonderful gems so that you can research it, because sometimes I get it. I look like the crazy woman online, eating raw plantains, talking a lot of smack. Sometimes I get after people. But if you really research, you realize that many of the things that you're being taught, or the things that you're not being shared, things that are not being shared with you, are purposefully being done because the demonization of the serpent goes way deeper than you could ever realize. So, hold on. So I always talk about my connection to the Andromedans, who also have lineage to cousin and kin to the Nega serpent. Why do you think that the Mayan temples, which are thousands of miles away from ancient Egypt, are reminiscent of the very pyramids that you saw in Egypt? You say to yourself, oh my gosh, how is it possible that you can have a pyramid shaped a little differently, more square, but differently, but very similar in architecture, all the way on the other side of the planet, that you have all the way in Egypt? Now I'm going to give you fun facts. Does anyone have the time? I gotta get out of here. Anyone have the time? I'm going to give you fun facts, so you can also know that Florbo knows her information. One of the things when the colonization happened, when ancient Kemet was already emptied out, the beings living in ancient Kemet now are not the same lineage of beings that actually built the ancient pyramids. Those are those who just moved into an already standing city that was already abandoned, okay? When the colonizers came, and there were different colonizers, that's why I don't link them to one. I don't want to put a lump of people, because it was several different colonizers that came to ancient Africa and ancient Egypt and defiled the tombs. That's defiling. There's payment. There's going to be a debt for those, your ancestors who did that. They defiled the tombs. They would take those bodies, those wonderful mummified bodies that took so much time, but nobody knows. This is where I'm going to give you fun facts. Because cocaine and also tobacco were found in those mummies. So what's interesting about that, is there another troll on here? Let me give, okay, Tasha, you want power? I'm gonna give you secret powers. Tasha, activate it, there you go. When you see him, get him. Yes, the tombs were defiled. So when they went inside, I love some of the researchers. I'm gonna give the names of some of them. You'll probably hear me say them on, wonderfully on IG. And you know what's so fun? I love knowing my community, because researchers and clinicians, we all kind of kiki, and we're nerds. So we kind of obsess with like weird things. I obsess with ETs. They obsess with certain types of DNA. But when they were consuming, when the colonizers took the bodies and defiled the tombs and opened them up and were consuming the contents of the mummies that were already depreciated, meaning they had already started to decay. It was a black powder that they were consuming. A couple clinicians and researchers that are amazing researchers. One is from England. In fact, the other one's from, where's she from? Scotland or Ireland? Amazing. I really respect their work. They did testing of the DNA of what was actually inside of these beings. And why I want to tell you why it's important, because we're like, oh, why are you bringing up cocaine and nicotine? Cocaine and nicotine are not that new, family. There isn't anything under the sun. If you studied under Dr. Delbert Blair or any of the other elders, you understand and understand that everything is basically a revolving program. There isn't anything new. Cocaine and nicotine were used in the embalming process. Also, they were placed inside of the clothing. If you think I'm crazy, go research it, and I will tell you that when you vet it out, it is absolute fact. So in the embalming process, when they were mummifying these beings, they utilized cocaine, and also nicotine, and it was actually put inside of the robes, which gave the impression that these beings were actually consuming cocaine, but they weren't, and they weren't consuming necessarily nicotine, which they had at the time. But you say to yourself, how could ancient Egyptians get cocaine, and also nicotine, which were known to be in Central America? Let's go back to what I said previously. If you notice, the cousins, the Andromedans, the wonderful Maya, the Aztecians, all had those beautiful plants, which were used for medicinal reasons and also for doing surgery that they did back then, okay? They weren't overutilizing it as a drug and changing its molecular structure like narcissistic sociopaths who've never seen a herb before and use it for different ways. I won't judge. But the ancient Maya, the Aztecians, were utilizing these plants for the same reasons that the Egyptians were. But how do you say that thousands of miles away in ancient Egypt and Africa, were they doing and utilizing the same herbs that weren't even present? Because according to Columbus was the one, and his people were the one who actually were the first to come in contact with cocaine, the cocaine plant and the nicotine. And that's untrue. What they thought, because they were very ignorant, they thought that they were above, they were the only ones who traveled, which we know, because if you know anything, you know that, at a time when the whole planet was Pangea, before the land masses broke apart, it used to be one land mass, and many people who coexisted on one side, because there were spaceships, because there was means of traveling via stargates, where people in ancient Egypt were traveling either by ship, by macabre, or by stargates to their ancient brethren in the rainforest and also in the jungles. So those bodies that were taken and defiled in Egypt, which the Europeans colonizers were consuming, Mamiya, you could look it up. They found that there was cocaine and also tobacco, which they deemed was impossible because they said they didn't have that access to it because there wasn't any shipping of it from Central America yet, which is untrue. Why do I want to bring up this fun facts? Please be mindful of who you listen to. Agenda, agenda, agenda. When we talk about reptilians, when we talk about different breeds, whoever they're demonizing, you have to be mindful of who's doing the demonization and what is the goal and the incentive. What time is it, family? Can someone tell me the time? Do you guys have the time? Do you have to look it up? Because I know I'll talk forever. I know you guys are going to give me time. 2:40? Okay, thank you, East Coasters. I got about 15 more minutes to blow your mind. All this video is to let you know to stop judging from the perspective of people that you don't know what their agenda is, you don't know what their incentive is, and you darn skippy don't know where they come from. Whenever you have someone like David Icke, Corey Good, David Wilcock, John Lear, these are a specific type of lineage of beings that have been known to lie, mislead, and also change information based on their own perspective or maybe even prejudices. The serpent in the garden, was it really the snake that influenced Eve? Or was it the snake that was warning Eve of a male, a patriarchy, that was going to take some of what she knew or didn't want her to know who she was? Remember that. And what I wanted to say, because I wanted to show everybody, because I know on IG I kind of flashed you my thing. I wanted to give some help for those who are reptiles. Big up to all the reptilians on my live feed who are dealing with issues of skin issues and disorders. You have not been taking care of yourself, reptilians, because they did not show you who and what you were. So what Flurboon does, because you know I research everything, I found something that will help a lot of you reptilians. Look at that. The UV light. Now, when many of you who have snakes, you have frogs, you have your own beautiful little animals that you keep in your house, the lizards that you hold, you know that they need a special light. Did you forget, family, that we're mixed with reptilian and we're not getting enough UVB? So many of you have bad eczema, cirrhosis, really bad skin issues, and you're not knowing why. You're saying, I'm eating right, I'm drinking a lot of water. This is really good for you reptilians as well, oxygen water. I'm drinking a lot of water. I still have really poor skin. It seems like something's going on with my endocrine system because the populace does not want you to know, you beautiful reptiles, that you suffer from these things because you are not getting the proper light that in ancient times you got, because we were living in a binary system where the light was heightened and we were getting a lot of UV. So this is my UV. I'm going to show you what it is. It's my UV light that I bought, okay? Many of you heard me on Instagram talking about it. So my Instagram family already knows. They're like, yeah, Flurboon already showed that with us. This is going to be used for my, this is ultraviolet light phototherapy. Now, many of you don't know, many of the higher end, big up to the higher end bougie elitist reptilians. You guys know I'm blowing your spot, reptilians. All the higher end, all the bougies. Oh, thank you, Alveda. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Thank you. All the higher end reptilians know this already because they go to what you call a photo booth, and they stand there and they get UVs all over their body to help them heal so that they're not shape-shifting into little patches showing their wonderful, beautiful form. Why wouldn't they tell you about yourself? Because they don't want you to know and heal yourself, and they want you to be subject to, you know, poor health and so on, okay? So listen, family, this is what it comes in. It comes with glasses, you know, this comes with glasses. It comes with the wand, okay? So you can wand yourself with the UV. You know, some of you are suffering from all these health issues, and you think that something's wrong with you, but it isn't anything wrong with you, you beautiful reptilians. There's something right with you, but you're not getting the proper, there's something right with you, but you're not getting the proper, doses of UV. And that's also why, family, I'm gonna give you another wild gem. That's also why they're covering the sky, because they don't want you to be healthy, my healthy reptilians, my nega serpents, my beautiful reptiles that are not negative. They don't want you to have sunlight, because a certain kind of UV ray is what you require for your healthy homeostasis. They want you to be depreciated. So not only are they doing chemtrails for other diabolical reasons, one of the incentives that these bastards are doing it for is to make sure the lower tier reptilians that do not know what they are, because they didn't get their user manual when they took over and made you forget who you are, they're covering the sun. So you beautiful reptiles are looking like your skin is like flaking and doing all kinds of craziness. If you knew who you were, you would literally go and take care of it, like the higher end reptilians. They go to these wonderful places where they pay $1,400. Yes, they do. I've seen it. $1,400 to stand in a standing UV machine that goes around their body only in seconds, and their skin is healed from the very things that many of you are suffering from. Flurburn, you sound like a fool calling yourself a reptilian. Well, Art, if I sound like a fool, then let me be a fool. But Art, at the same time, you probably are the one that's suffering from a lot of the issues. I'm not saying that I'm full-blown reptilian, but Art, just your venom, just your angst towards me lets me know that you're probably suffering from some reptile disorder in your mind. And probably you're one of the hostile ones that don't want this information to come out, because you want everyone else to be depreciated. You don't want them knowing about themselves, and you're gonna sit there and act like what I'm saying is a lie. Research, family. They could come. They could come from everywhere. Because the same people who troll my channel will sit there and make videos later, secretly hating on me and taking the information and utilizing it. So watch the trolls. Watch the other channels, family, because no one will tell you the truth. I haven't any, oh, thank you, Lisa, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I have no other incentive to tell you this. I'm not getting paid to tell you that you're a reptilian. You don't have to listen to what I said. You don't even have to take what I said vested. But remember, I gave you a lot of fun facts today. Things that you may have not known about the ancient mummies, mumia, the things that were going on, and also the provocateurs. Research who you're listening to, and always know, if you cannot follow the trail to who and what they came from, their humble beginnings, you gotta be mindful. If my channel, oh, let me state this before I go. My channel is one of the channels, let me state this before I go, because I forgot. I wanted to say this to everyone who's been, whose subscriptions have been taken off. Please check your subscription to me. About 30 people were unsubscribed to me when I made the hybrid video. They contacted me, so I just thought people didn't like the video. No. 30 people were unsubscribed from me when I made the hybrid video, the last video. YouTube apparently unsubscribed people because I was talking about reptilians. So please check your subscription. I'm not taking you off. I wouldn't do that. I don't even block people really unless they're really heinous. I let the draconians come on here. I let some of the low-field Satanists and Luciferians come on here. I really do. I rarely block you. So if your subscription has been deactivated and your bell's turned off, just turn it back on and resubscribe. I'm not taking you off, okay? So I'm sorry about that. If you felt like I took you off or I was blocking you, I didn't do it. 30 people. Like I said, I just totally thought that people just didn't like the video. 30 people were unsubscribed from the last video because of what I shared in hybridism. So I really appreciate that. Many of you rock with me. I share you only what I know. I'm grateful that you rock with me over the years when people thought I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. You know what I mean? I'm grateful for all the donations that you do. You guys do I didn't even know that I had a super chat. This is how simple, Flurburn is. I didn't even know I had super chat on here for donations until someone did it. I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I'm appreciative of all the donations that you do otherwise, and I appreciate it every single thing that you do, your support. Many of you support me just personally, you rock with me. I share this information because I know it. okay? And a lot of us come from the same mothership and the same lineage. They're not going to tell you who you are. You're going to have to find out who you are. And all I do is give you more information that you can either keep it in the archives, utilize it for self, or just throw it away as something that may not even be relative to you. But there isn't anything that I would do to harm you or to make you feel any way about yourself. I'm all about self-esteem. I'm all about the family system. I support all divine beings on this planet, animals, aquatics, everything that is here for the cohesion of the planet. So I thought that was all I'm going to share. I just want to give that. I got to go in a little bit. I'm sorry. I would be a little longer. And yes, I'm kicking off my season tonight. Please like my videos. I appreciate when you like my videos. Thank you so much. I am doing a private screening of the kickoff of my Masterful Mating series. We're talking about Masterful Wands tonight. It is a bit seedy for those. It's a Patreon exclusive. It's only on Patreon for those joining. So anyone who's joining Aquarius Rising tonight, I'm kicking off my season with our special guest, Doc Stigler, who knows everything about Masterful Wands. He'll be joining us tonight on the series. Oh, thank you, Sunshine. I appreciate it. So for those joining tonight, it's a Patreon exclusive. I've actually closed off the blog talk. This is going to be real talk. We're going to get it in tonight, and I really want to have this conversation about masterful mating, how it's necessary. Many of us come from different backgrounds, very different species, and I think I can only do, as someone who studied genetics and heredity, I really made sure that I share all the gems that I have. So I made it private because a lot of times, because we have discussions, especially related to sex, this is not something I want little children to listen to. You know, I'm a protector of the little ones. So if you wanted to join just for now for Patreon, you can join tonight. Me and Doc Stigler are going to get it in tonight. So make sure you join Patreon. You're going to be at 9 o'clock. My blog talk is only closed off for Patreon and Cypher. So make sure you get it in. It's going to be a series. I'm going to be talking to men, and we're going to be talking about real life scenarios with divine males, talking about divine sex, talking about what's necessary for a masterful mating. I think this is something that I've really, really focused on within my own mating, the way that I mate. And it actually has been successful. There's a lot of reasons that's been successful. So if you want to join tonight, 9 o'clock, join us on Patreon. You can join just for a month. You don't have to join for every month. You can join for just tonight. You can watch all the other gems and videos that I don't share to YouTube. There's videos that I have on there that you'll never see on YouTube, because there's certain things that I just think that if people want to really see it privately, they'll go there. Okay, so join me tonight, again, 9 o'clock with Doc Stigler. Talking about Masterful Wands. We're talking about that tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. You know where to call. It's a private session. Check it in. Check that out. Also for the UV light, I'm not promoting it. Listen, I had to order my light. It's $400 for the light. I got my light on Wish for half the price. I got it for like $250 or $275. For those who want to know about the light, I share it with you because I'm about this life. And if you have a problem with reptilians, then you have a problem with me. If you have a problem with Lyrians, you have a problem with me. If you have a problem with Syrians, you have a problem with me. If you have a problem with any of the beautiful ETs that are here, hybrid and people that rock on this platform, you have a problem with me, because I am here to actually show and actually share information that I've gained based on my contactee experiences, being contacted not only by the Andromedans, but a part sex of the Nega serpent line and many of the different ETs, which I've talked about. The Zetas were one of the Zetas came out first, which many of you know, I think I talked about on Patreon. The Zetas rock with me first. Not first as far as, first overtly as far as like coming out when I was already in my awakening. It's beautiful. So anyway, join me tonight. It's going to be a very interesting, get your snacks on. It's going to be very seedy. So mommies, daddies, uncles, aunties, abuelas, put your headphones on. This is like Flirburn After Dark. You know how we get down. We talk about sexuality and so on. It's going to get real, really quick. So again, join me on Patreon tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern on Aquarius Rising. I love you, family. I hope the things that I shared to you were helpful, and I wish you well. All right. Peace, and be safe this weekend. A lot of